Case 623 by Danny Yu. Chapter 14. A long beat of silence, then Sedicate? That doesn't seem wise. There are numerous examples of normal fetuses breaking their mother's ribs. Who knows what one could do when enhanced by the serum? In all likelihood, the surrogate would die before the pregnancy was even viable. Besides, there are many advantages to a serum-saturated environment throughout the fetal development. The nutrients alone.
Listen, Tony told Jamie, crouching down in front of the chair so he'd be on eye level with the kid. He carefully pulled the numbing patch off Jamie's thin forearm, threw it in the general direction of the trash, and tore open the packaging of a disinfection wipe before carefully rubbing the cleaning alcohol into the revealed skin. "Daddy, that's cold!" Jamie interrupted with a small giggle, legs wriggling enough to almost hit Tony right in the arc reactor. "Yeah," Tony said. "Yeah, I know. I'm sorry." He picked up the injection gun, looked up, and met his son's eyes. "This is going to sting a bit," he said. "Not gonna lie about that. But you remember helping me build the new iron cradle?" Jamie nodded. "So I can fly away if someone bad comes after me," he said, eyes showing a bit more understanding than Tony was entirely comfortable with his 3.5-year-old displaying. Tony nodded. "This will make it so it can always find you," he said, "but it's going to sting a bit going in. Is that all right?" Jamie gave another serious nod. Tony gritted his teeth, halfway hating himself already. Then he pulled the plunger, winced when Jamie did his best to ignore the sick feeling that gathered tight in the pit of his stomach at the knowledge that he was causing his son pain. He immediately pulled the boy close, kissing the top of his head before he drew back enough to wipe away the small spot of blood. "So sorry, baby boy." Jamie pulled himself together admirably, an adorably placated expression taking over his face. "I'm not a baby," he said. "I'm a big boy. It didn't hurt that bad." Tony reached out to ruffle his hair, letting his knuckles draw over Jamie's cheek. Some of the baby fat had dropped away over the last few months, revealing what would one day be a square jaw and truly impressive cheekbones. Tony's baby boy would be a true heartbreaker one day. "Think you can handle another 3?" he asked. Jamie gave another determined nod. "I'm a big boy," he said again. "That you are," Tony agreed, squeezing Jamie's shoulder before moving on to the next numbing patch. Jamie could handle it, he was pretty sure of that. He wasn't sure how well he'd deal with it himself, though. He was just putting a Hulk band-aid over the last injection site when Jarvis interrupted. "Sir, may I commend you on testing the transmitters on yourself and reading the safety instructions before injecting your son. Although I would have admired it even more if you'd read said instructions before injecting yourself. I should also add that Dr. Banner is approaching." Before Tony was even done rolling his eyes at the mothering, the workshop door opened and Bruce walked in, face settling into a frown behind his glasses as he took in the scene. "Tony, are you chipping your son?" he asked. Tony shook his head. "No." At Bruce's cocked eyebrow, he rolled his eyes. "Not technically. I chipped him years ago." If anything, that only made Bruce's frown worse. "Why would you chip your son?" Tony stood up straight, dusted off his pants. "Do you know I was kidnapped 7 times before I turned 12? Starknapping was an official word in at least a couple of dictionaries in the 70s. He shrugged. "It was no fun. I have no intention of ever letting it happen to Jamie if I can help it. So yeah, I chipped him." Bruce still looked like he was about to object, and this really wasn't a subject Tony wanted to discuss in front of Jamie. At all. Thankfully, Jarvis had gotten really good at the whole reading faces thing. "Master James, I have recorded your favorite cartoon. I have it queued up on the Den Area Entertainment System if you would like to watch it." Or maybe not so thankfully, since Jamie took off with a whoop and left Tony without a human shield behind which he could avoid certain uncomfortable conversations. Tony took a deep breath. "It's a legitimate concern," he said. He rolled his eyes. "And it makes me feel better. I'll take it out when he's older and has some training, I swear. But right now," he shook his head. "I have nightmares almost every night," he said then. "And sometimes I wake up in a cold sweat and realize I haven't dreamed about Afghani caves, or wormholes, or aliens, or someone stealing the arc reactor. I dream that Jamie's mom has decided she wants him back. And she manages to take him somehow, and I know I'm never going to see him again. That dream is the worst one. Absolute worst." He inhaled sharply. So maybe I'm a terrible parent for chipping my infant son, but if it means the risk of losing him is just the tiniest bit smaller. Another shrug. This has gotta be worth it.
Bruce sighed. I'm sorry, he said. And you're not a terrible parent. He grimaced. I'm projecting again. I hate the idea of anyone being able to track me.
Tony nodded. And there'll be a day when he'll hate it too, and I'll take it out. But until then, he shrugged. I'm going to take what I can get. I'm going to protect the one thing I can't live without.
So, Bruce said, if you chipped him years ago, what were you doing just now?
Tony flashed him a grin. Let me show you the newest model of the Iron Cradle. And the new suit. New suit is pretty damn cool too.
Tony looked at the towering pile of boxes and immediately began regretting his life decisions. Most prominently, the idea of giving Jamie a proper New York Christmas, which led to the idea of decking out the penthouse, and the subsequent decision to go on an internet tinsel shopping spree.
What was I even thinking?
Bruce clapped his shoulder before plopping into the couch. I have absolutely no idea, he said. You do realize we aren't tall enough to hang anything from the ceiling, right?
Ladders, Tony said, but the thought kind of made him feel exhausted. The suit.
Do not try to hang Christmas decorations while wearing the Iron Man suit, Bruce said. And yeah, okay, Bruce probably had a point there. Besides, it wasn't like all he'd bought was ceiling decorations. At least he was pretty sure that wasn't all. So some of them could probably be hung without a ladder. He cast a despairing glance at the boxes, let out a sigh, and set about opening them. Half an hour later, he was determinedly trying to get a garland of fake evergreens as straight on the wall as he possibly could without resorting to a bubble level, and silently enough to hang glass balls and stuff from. Mournfully, he looked out over the rest of the living room, still undecorated. He needed to build a bot for this crap. Daddy! Tony jumped and almost stabbed his own hand with a pin before he turned around and caught sight of Jamie. He managed to crouch down and get his arms open just in time for the kid to barrel into him, backpack flying from one small shoulder.
Hey, kiddo, he said. How was daycare? He glanced down at his watch, winced. Why had Jarvis not warned him about the fact that he was going to miss Jamie's pickup time?
Uncle Bruce picked me up,
Jamie said, inadvertently saving Tony from his own confusion. He glanced up at the fake evergreen tinsel stuff.
What's that?
He asked. Christmas decorations, Tony said. He frowned. There had been a Christmas last year as well, but that was before Jamie hit the really inquisitive age. Also, Tony wasn't entirely sure about memory formation at 2.5 years old. Still, someone had to have explained Christmas to Jamie by now, right? TV, if nothing else. You know what Christmas is, right? Jamie gave a small shrug.
Something about presents, he said. Maria says she doesn't know what it is, though.
Tony nodded, frowning. He wasn't sure how to explain Christmas properly, especially without getting into the religious aspects, and his family had never been big on those. Sure, for all intents and purposes, Tony had been raised Catholic, but Christmas had mostly been about showcasing what a perfect family Howard Stark had, and parties to show he was richer than his peers. Jarvis, he asked, I will look for a selection of children's books and films that attempt to explain the various meanings of Christmas. Sir, Jarvis said, they'll be ready for your screening shortly. Tony grimaced. Maybe he should just call Rogers. Sure, they weren't exactly friendly, but Captain America should, theoretically, get a kick out of attempting to explain the meaning of Christmas to a little kid. He glanced over his shoulder, cast Bruce a pleading glance. Bruce held up his hands.
Don't look at me, I was raised atheist.
Tony rolled his eyes. I'm assuming this isn't a big enough emergency to call Cap, he said. Maybe Rhodey or Pepper.
Jamie was giggling, which didn't exactly help.
Oh, well.
That's pretty, though,
he said, pointing up at the green stuff.
Can I help?
Sure. Tony supposed that was one way of working around the problem.
For the record, Bruce said, I'm not sure any of the others have anyone to celebrate Christmas with. They might appreciate a phone call.
Tony groaned. I think accidentally buying Natasha the wrong present is a pretty sure way to get yourself killed, he said. Then he rolled his eyes. Sure, Jarvis, send out some invitations. Let's attempt this thing. He ruffled Jamie's hair. Things I'd do for you, kid. Let's hang this tinsel. Sir, Jarvis said, I assume Miss Potts, Lieutenant Rhodes, and Mr. Hogan are also to be invited. Sure, Tony responded. Sir, Jarvis said again. It has been 27 days since Mr. Hogan last checked his email. I am not sure he will receive the invitation. Tony started out a laugh. That sounds about right. Call them up for me, will you? He had to wait for long moments, and he could just imagine Happy fumbling around trying to pick up the video call on the new tablet Tony had been nice enough to give him for his birthday. Hello? Happy finally said as his face popped up on the nearest screen, or well, part of his face. Tony bit back a laugh. Is this forehead of security? What? Happy said. Tony could just see him blinking terrifyingly enlarged until he got the point and put a bit of distance between himself and the tablet. Yeah, I've got a real job. What do you want? I'm working and I've got something going on here. What? Tony asked. He could feel a smile tugging on his face. Shit, but he'd miss that man. Harassing the interns. Let me tell you something, Happy said. You know what happened when I told people I was Iron Man's bodyguard? They would laugh in my face. Tony let out a laugh. I said you could be Jamie's bodyguard. That wouldn't be so bad, would it? Kid loves you. Jamie is 3 years old and goes to daycare in the same building where he lives. What would you have me do? Go to daycare with me? Happy let out an exaggerated sigh. I had to leave while I still had a shred of dignity. Now I got a real job. I'm watching Peppa. What's going on? Tony asked, trying to keep his grin down. Fill me in. For real? Happy said, and he sounded so ridiculously surprised that, well, happy that Tony felt a pang of conscience. He was going to have to remember to call Happy up more often just to ask how his day was going. Yeah, Tony said. All right, so she's meeting up with the scientist. Happy said. Which guy? Handsome. Right, Tony said, and had to buy back a little smile. Happy's crush on Pepper was pretty damn adorable. Now, if only Happy would go and actually do something about it rather than project all over Tony, well, I couldn't make his face at first, right? You know I'm good with faces. Happy continued. Oh yeah, you're the best, Tony said, glancing over his shoulder to make sure Jamie hadn't wrecked the living room. He hadn't, although he and Bruce were making an utter mess of Tony's boxes of Christmas decorations. Alright, so I run his credentials. I make him Aldrich Killian. We actually met the guy back in, where were we in 99? The science conference? Tony frowned, had to take a moment to actually connect the dots. As a rule, he had a very blurry, fragmented memory of the 90s as a whole, especially when it came to particular times and places. Still, this one had been significant. This one had been... Jensen. Switzerland, Tony said, biting back the old, all too familiar pang in his chest. Right, exactly, Happy said. Tony took a breath, brought himself back on course. Tried to see if he could remember more about Switzerland and 99. Killian... Nah, don't remember that guy. Of course you don't remember. Happy said it. Was he? He was actually rolling his eyes, the rat bastard. He's not a blonde with a big rack. First is fine. They were talking business. But now it's like getting weird. He's showing her his big brain. This what? Tony had to bite back a laughing. God, he really did miss having Happy around all the time. Big brain. And she likes it. Happy sounded absolutely horrified at that tidbit. Here, let me show you. See? Look at what? You watching them? Tony frowned at the screen, which Happy was clearly moving around. Still, Tony wasn't seeing anything other than Happy. He was going to have to remember this stuff for the next Starkpad model. Make Happy test out the prototype. That way, he'd get something everyone in the world was guaranteed to be able to operate. Flip the screen and then we can get started. I'm not a tech genius like you, Happy groused. Just trust me, get down here. Tony glanced over his shoulder again and swooped in to help hang the next bit of green tinsel. I'm in New York, Hap. Flip the screen. Then I can see what they're doing. I can't. I don't know how to flip the screen, Happy said. Look, you can't talk to me like that anymore. You're not my boss, alright? I don't work for you. I don't trust this guy. He's got another guy with him. He's shifty. Tony grinned. He was pretty sure Happy had never had as much fun in his life as he was having as head of security, even if it did make you paranoid. Relax. Seriously? I'm just asking you, Tony said. Secure the perimeter. Tell him to go out for a drink or something. You know what? You should take more of an interest in what's going on here. And there he went with the disapproval and the projection. This woman is the best thing that ever happened to you, and you're just ignoring her. Happy, Tony said. Pepper and I are not, have not, and never will be dating. You should just ask her out. You can take her for a date when you both come up here for Christmas. It'll be nice. Christmas? Happy said. Yeah, Tony said. Christmas. You coming? He blinked, remembered the slightly bizarre nature of Happy's earlier words. Big brain? Yeah, there's a big brain. There's a shifty character. Happy paused, frowned. Christmas. Sure. I'm gonna follow this guy. I'm gonna run his plates, and and if it gets rough, so be it. I miss you, Happy, Tony said.
Yeah, I miss you too,
Happy said, and Tony was pretty sure he even meant it.
but the way it used to be.
Now you're off with your super friends, and I don't know what's going on with you anymore. The world's getting weird. Tony Wins could suddenly feel space and wormholes pressing in all around him, and yeah, no, he wasn't dealing with that right now. Hey, I hate to cut you off. Do you have your taser with you? He was pretty sure the fact that Jamie was in the room was the only reason he managed to keep his voice steady. Why? Happy asked. I think there's a gal in HR who's trying to steal some printer ink, Tony said, and he might have said something else as well, but mostly he was done with the call, and he was pretty sure Happy was too. He put on a smile, turned back to Bruce and Jamie. Let's get some of those decorations up. Drop my needle, Jarvis. 3 hours later, he got the phone call that Happy was in critical condition in the ICU.